Shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. In this Civ overview, we're going to be taking a look at the upcoming campaign DLC Battle for Greece and deep dive the Spartans. Now this is not a civilization coming to ranked multiplayer, and is instead designed solely for use in the DLC's grand campaign, where you play as them for the final 6 out of the 21 missions battling the Athenians. That said, you will be able to play them in unranked games against the AI or in the multiplayer unranked lobby. I actually can't show anything from the campaign itself, which is of course mainly the content of the DLC, but we can take a look at the Spartans tech tree, test out some of their units, and discuss if any of the experimental mechanics seem like they might be good enough to bring over into the base game of AoE2. Now given this is an infantry civilization and overhauls the barracks, we should probably start there first. Notice there are 3 different infantry types, a reskinned militia line, the spear line, and a new hoplite line, with then gambesons removed and a new technology in Imperial Age called battle drills being added. To start with the swordsman line, the first 3 units are just straight up reskins of the classic militia, men-at-arms, and longsword, but the two-handed swordsman upgrade takes the form of the new battle drills tech, which gives the unit everything the two-handed swordsman has for the same cost and without a visual change. You then have the Paragon as the champion replacement, and while they end up in the same spot stats-wise, I assume this was done just to cut down on the number of different unit models. The spear line then is completely unchanged and just straight up reskinned with all the same stats. Things get more interesting though with the hoplite in Castle Age. Now they aren't affected by supplies, and end up being 10 food and gold more per unit than the swordsman line, while having fairly similar stats, just lacking a tiny bit of HP, but then having more attack, melee armor, and an extra 0.3 tiles of range, kind of like a much smaller Kamiok bonus, which personally I'd actually be okay with giving to all spearline units in AoE2 now that I see it. Spartans then have a Civ bonus allowing you to immediately upgrade them to elite hoplites in Castle Age, where they end up being similar to a Paragon, but with notably more armor, and that slight reach advantage. They also have a unique ability where if there's another hoplite within a couple of tiles, they each get +1/+1 armor, and in reality that's probably the version of the unit that you're going to be using, where suddenly they end up having 3 more melee armor than the regular swordsman line. I should note there is no difference between having 1 versus 2 or more nearby hoplites, and it doesn't continue to stack. Just 2 units beside each other already get the maximum benefit. To give a rough sense of the unit, with equal numbers against fully upgraded paragons or champions, the elite hoplite does win in melee. Remember though, it's 30 gold instead of 20 gold per unit, and if we rebalance the numbers based on gold spent, it's the paragons that win easily, so you get the classic trade-off of cost efficiency versus pop efficiency. Another notable advantage is that the elite hoplite is cheaper and faster to fully upgrade than the full champion line. The general takeaway is the hoplite in melee is a slightly better swordsman unit for a significantly higher gold cost in the long run. With the overhauled barracks out of the way, now let's move on to the Spartans' bonuses. Their team bonus is everyone's barracks research is 50% faster, which saves up to a cumulative 2.5 minutes of research for Spartans themselves, and the barracks really is the focus for your Civ, so you'll definitely get some benefit out of this. Their next Civ bonus is they get access to a new unit called the Polemarch at the town center, unlocking 1 in Feudal and a second one in Castle Age. I know it looks like Polemarch, but Merriam-Webster says it's Polemarch, and that's what I'm going with. So who is he and why should you care? This is actually an incredibly important commander hero unit for Spartans, which improves every age automatically. They're free to train and replace if you lose them, though remember you have a hard cap at a very small number. It takes a little while to train up as a replacement if one is lost, but the training time actually decreases in later ages as well. They then have 2 direct upgrades at the town center, with the first giving them more attack and a quote shield, which works like a Shravamsh Rider dodge mechanic to negate a limited number of incoming arrows, while the other gives them more HP and train faster. Now a free, easily replaced hero would be okay on its own as a novel idea, but their main selling feature is that they give an aura to all of your nearby military units to attack 15% faster if they're within a generous 8-tile radius shown here. The effect applies to all military units, including infantry, archers, cavalry, siege, and even ships. You then have a choice between 2 different techs to enhance the Polemarch's aura further at the town center. Both increase the Polemarch's range from 8 to 12 tiles in every direction, but in addition to that, the first option lets them heal nearby units at 50 HP per minute or 20 HP per minute for siege, while Berserks heal at 40 HP as a reference. The other option lets all military units in the Polemarch's aura move 15% faster. This is all on top of the standard 15% attack rate boost as well, by the way. Of course, they don't stack their auras together, but it means you can massively pump up your armies at 2 different spots on the map at once. The last bonus for the Spartans is a pretty straightforward economic one, letting villagers and fishing ships drop off 10% more food. So if they collect 10, when they drop it off, your stockpile goes up by 11. This includes not just sheep, boar, and berries to jumpstart your economy, but also farms as well, giving a straight 10% food collection boost, plus a bit of a longer lasting resource effect. If you collect everything from a 250 food farm, for example, it actually turns into 275 total food dropped off. It's just a very solid passive eco boost at any point of the game, despite its flagrant disregard for the law of conservation of mass. So that's their bonuses, unfortunately not having a pop cap of 300 being among them. Largely, the Spartans come down to remembering to use your Polemarch and making good use of the barracks. Next, let's jump to the castle and take a look at their unique unit, the Hippeus. Now, Hippeus means cavalry in Greek, so he might seem oddly named. However, the Spartans use the term to refer to their royal guard, so blame the Spartans and not the devs. They cost 60 food and 30 gold, very similar to a hoplite, but really stand out for having the highest HP out of your infantry options, as well as 3 more pure summering castle age and 4 more when elite. The Hippeus is a tiny bit slower moving as they represent your most heavily armored infantry, and this is ultimately your damage tank, especially against archers. Against just a generic Imperial Age archer unit, the Spearline takes 7 shots, and the champion replacement takes 14, while the elite hoplites take 18, utilizing their buddy system. In contrast, the elite Hippeus takes 90 shots, so while they're slow, they're very happy fighting in the shade. In melee with equal numbers though, elite hoplites win thanks to extra melee armor as well as their slightly longer reach. Basically, hoplites at the barracks are your top quality melee unit if cost isn't a consideration, while the Hippeus at the castle is your most arrow resistant infantry, while the regular swordsman line is simply your most gold efficient option. While you have a lot of infantry to choose from, it ends up feeling like they all have a unique role. With your various infantry options covered though, now let's talk about the choices you have for unique techs. The Battle for Greece DLC introduces the idea of choosing one of 2 unique techs in each age. In Castle Age, your first option allows spearmen, skirmishers, and villagers to train 50% faster. Now while that sounds crazy, it's not as broken as it might seem for villagers, since remember you need a castle first, and it also costs 800 resources. That said, campaigns often start you in Castle Age, sometimes with a castle and decent starting resources, so there are situations this was one of the first techs I picked up. The other option is military focused and gives your hoplites and ramming ships +1 attack for every 10 nearby enemy units, capping at +3. Remember, hoplites already pump each other's armor up as your melee specialist, and with enemies then pumping up their attack as well, you can end up with multiple proximity effects going on, indicated by a new icon. Throw in the Polemarch to give them faster attack and potentially healing mid-fight, and you can see how hard the DLC leans into stacking aura effects, more than anything we've seen before. Following this, in Imperial Age, you have another choice in unique techs. The first lets infantry take 33% less bonus damage, which actually only applies to 1 unit from Athenians and Persians as far as I know, reducing incoming damage by 2 or 3 per attack, so it seems a little steep at 350 food and 650 gold. The other unique tech allows warships to train 50% faster, and your castles generate gold passively. It is just 20 gold per minute, which is only 2/3 of a relic, and is again fairly expensive at 700 food and 400 gold. For 1 castle, that's a 20-minute payoff time for the gold to break even alone, though if you had 3 or more castles and it was also a water-heavy map, then there starts to be a better argument for this. I can at least see a situation where each of the unique techs would be a good choice, and while I think it's a fun aspect of the DLC, I kind of doubt this would ever come to the base game, given it would involve coming up with 90 new unique tech ideas. So that's the unique tech options, and now let's move on and take a look at their wider tech tree, starting with the archers. Things actually begin pretty well, but fall off hard in Imperial Age, with nothing new to research other than Bracer. You might say the Imperial Age archer tech tree is pretty Spartan. Now that said, the skirmisher as a counter to enemy archers are nice to have, but I never found myself in the campaign missions I played making much of anything else here personally. Moving on to infantry, as we saw, the barracks is great, with early access to the elite hoplite and the Polemarch, making all of these units S tier in melee. There isn't a fast-moving infantry here, unless you get the specific Polemarch upgrade to do that, but you sort of get around speed with just raw stats, maybe most on display with the Hippeus and its ability to tank arrows. Of course, it probably shouldn't be a surprise that Spartans have the highest quality infantry in the DLC, given the pop culture perception of Sparta as a small number of near-invincible warriors. Next up, for cavalry, like archers, things start out fine, with the equivalent of fully upgraded knights, renamed lancers, in the DLC. Also similar to the archer range though, is you get no techs outside the blacksmith in Imperial Age. Mobility is probably the #1 weakness of the Spartan late game, though that said 10% more food would probably make for a decent scout rush and night spam in a competitive setting. Moving on to Siege, it's pretty solid, and Siege and Infantry is one of those classic pairings in AoE2. Unfortunately, you don't have Siege Engineers for your Onagers, but you have a nice foundation here to work with. Next up, for the Navy, it's a mostly open tech tree, though they're the only one of the 3 new civs to lack shipwright and also lack the reskinned galleon. I personally think the Onager ship makes the galleon less important in the DLC than usual, but there's no question you have an expensive and relatively weak navy compared to the other new civs. Jumping to the temple, I personally appreciate that Heresy has been renamed Hemlock, though most of the renaming in general is pretty clever. Spartans have the equivalent of Redemption, so they're alright, but otherwise I'd say have the worst of the temples in the DLC as well. Next up, for defenses, Sparta hardly knows the meaning of the word. They have no stone walls or even masonry, and are definitely a good offense is the best defense kind of civ. So to give some final thoughts on the Spartan design, obviously it's all about infantry. The big takeaways are to focus on the Polemarch and using its aura effect, where especially in the late game with their upgrades, it can absolutely swing a fight to have one of your 2 commanders nearby. Other than that, unlike a lot of infantry-focused civs in AoE2, you can't say their early game flexibility is really sacrificed at all, with a great food boost and fully upgraded equivalents to crossbows or knights in Castle Age. It's only in the late game that you really need to start shifting over to infantry and siege, with a nice variety of infantry units to pick from depending on the matchup. You have the anti-cavalry, anti-melee, anti-pierce damage, and generalist value option to pick from. With that said, in context, Athens are a good archer civ, and Persians are a good cavalry archer civ that also have the anti-infantry war chariot. Sparta being so infantry-focused actually feels like a slight disadvantage in terms of design among the 3, but their economy and units can sometimes just win anyway through brute force and smart positioning of your Polemarchs. Taking a huge fight and having your units heal up 1 minute later is pretty epic. Admittedly, I've heard that Spartans' reputation was exaggerated historically, with some people calling them masters of propaganda, though they were also a city of professional soldiers, while other nearby towns' levies were full-time farmers. So make of that what you will, but whatever the reality, they definitely capture that pop culture idea of extreme quality here. A fun fact about Sparta under the rule of the Roman Empire is that Spartans' past glories were so legendary and Romans had so much respect for Greek culture that the town of Sparta actually became a tourist trap for wealthy Romans. It was basically the Disney World of the empire, where you could go watch Greeks dress up like Leonidas and cosplay the Battle of Thermopylae. It's very relatable, as who doesn't love a bit of a getaway now and then, which is why you should really come down to my newly opened classical themed resort, Spirit of the Spa. My new business even has a great website thanks to this video's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a great-looking website, engage with your audience, and then sell anything from products to content to time all in one place. Using their built-in templates, you can easily customize a website to your preferred aesthetic and what you're looking to do with it. That could include selling physical goods or digital content, including access to your own video library, with Squarespace handling the payment side of things so you can focus on the bigger picture. The search engine optimization tools then help your website show up in searches more often, so you can continue to grow and scale your business more effectively. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/spiritofthelaw to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. So that was a look at the new DLC Spartans. I know it's a little odd to cover a campaign-focused civilization, but I personally like the experimenting they're able to do with aura and commander units without impacting the latter, and thought you guys might be interested in the new civs. That'll do it for this one though. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.